Flames of an orange fire danced upon the basement walls, casting grotesque and dancing shadows on the damp surfaces. The air was thick, laden with the smell of wet earth and something more, a musty fragrance that made me wrinkle my nose. Every step I took creaked on the worn wooden floor, a sound amplified in the silent stillness. A cold breeze seeped through a crack in the wall, caressing the back of my neck with icy fingers and awakening shivers that crawled down my spine. In the shadows, I could glimpse forms contorting, taking life and vanishing with the dance of the flames. I approached a table covered by a faded tablecloth, upon which rested an ancient book with worn leather covers. Its title, written in golden letters that seemed to have been engraved by trembling hands, blurred in the dim light. As I touched it with my fingertip, I felt an electric shock course through my body. What secrets did this basement hold? The old lighthouse groaned in time with its broken heart. Every gear, every screw and brass piece resonated with a silent pain that had settled like a cold, invisible shadow within it. Solitude overwhelmed it, an insatiable void that amplified the crunch of the sea against the rocks, the wind's lament among the metallic canyons, the constant salty scent that reminded it of its inevitable fate. The lamps, beacons of hope for lost sailors, flickered and dimmed with increasing weakness, reflecting the fragility of their own existence. Night was a dark, impassive cloak spread over the raging sea. Waves rose like hungry phantoms, crashing against the rocks with unleashed fury. The frenzied rhythm of their collisions intensified, a wild drumming that shook the very foundations of the lighthouse, threatening to topple its fragile structure. The old seakeeper felt the weight of sorrow amplify with every roar of the wind, with each wave that battered him. The storm, like a living creature, surged upon him with the fury of unimaginable despair, pushing him toward his own ruin. The lights, barely visible through the veil of rain and mist, flickered like tears of anguish. The lighthouse struggled to stand firm, its metal beams bending under the weight of elemental rage. The salty aroma of the sea permeated every corner, a constant reminder of his imminent fate, a premonition that resonated in the depth of his metallic and desolate being. Suddenly, a blinding lightning bolt tore through the night sky, illuminating for a moment the apocalyptic scene. The old lighthouse found itself face to face with the devastating fury of nature, powerless before the relentless power of the sea. At that moment, he understood that his struggle was futile, that his resistance was merely a brief dance with inevitable fate. The wind howled like a wounded animal against the lighthouse windows, an agonized lament mingling with the roar of the enraged sea. The girl huddled between the cold stones of a lighthouse alcove, tried to find refuge in the darkness. Her small body trembled not only from the cold but also from fear. Each thunderclap was a sharp blow against her chest, a silent echo resonating amidst the chaotic roar of the storm. She felt the artificial warmth of a flickering candle, the only light in that dark and damp place. The scent of salt and smoke mingled in the air, a bittersweet blend that reminded her of what was lost, of what was destroyed. The girl couldn't recall exactly how she had arrived there, only the blurred image of enormous waves consuming everything in their path, the shout of a man lost to the wind, and the cold sensation of salt water flooding her lungs remained. Her small fingers clutched a torn blanket, trying to warm her trembling body. Tears streamed down her face, unstoppable. The storm still raged outside, threatening and relentless. The girl felt darkness attempting to engulf her entirely. But at the bottom of her tiny heart, a spark of hope remained. The lighthouse, with its blinding lights and imposing structure, was the only safe point amidst the chaos. Waves crashed against the rocks just meters away, hurling foam and salt water towards the lighthouse walls as if trying to penetrate its interior. A new sound joined the roar of the storm, a creak, a scratch that seemed to announce a crack in the fragile shelter offering her security. The girl squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out the terrifying images forming in her mind. The silence of the lighthouse was then broken by a whisper, a soft and gentle voice resonating in the alcove like a balm for her wounded soul. "Don't be afraid, little one. You are safe now." The roar of the lighthouse was not only the sound of the machinery guiding ships in danger. It was an echo of the keeper's sadness, a melancholy melody that reverberated in every beat of the glass. Days grew shorter and storms approached more frequently, threatening to extinguish the light, offering a glimmer of hope in the darkness. The girl, however, did not surrender. The warmth of the fire around him and the rough voice of the keeper as company. He found solace in the stories she told him. She spoke of dreams of sandcastle houses beside the sea, of journeys on ships made of clouds, and fields full of flowers that changed color with the wind. Her voice was a gentle melody that made its way through the roars of the lighthouse and the howls of the tempestuous sea. The old keeper listened to every word with the attention of a child, his eyes clouded by nostalgia and hope. In each story the girl told him, he saw reflected a spark of life, a promise of a future he could never reach. In turn, he spoke to her of the sea, its secrets and its dangers. He described the salty scent that filled the air after a storm, the sandy texture of the beach, and the gentle sound of waves crashing on the shore. In every detail, he sought to convey the magic that could only be found at the edge of the known world. The nights grew colder, and the storms more violent. The lighthouse battled the darkness with a flickering light, threatened by the gusts of wind whipping across the sea and battering its glass. A chill ran down the girl's spine, but the keeper's voice warmed her heart. They spoke of yearnings, of dreams that slipped through fingers like wet sand. He told her stories of ships sailing to distant lands, laden with promises and adventure. She, with the innocence of childhood, spoke to him of a world where storms were merely whispers, where the sun shone eternally, and where flowers bloomed in impossible colors. One day, a storm descended upon the coast with unleashed fury. The lighthouse trembled to its foundations, threatened by darkness that sought to consume it entirely. The little girl clung to the old keeper, feeling fear pounding in her chest like a drum. Waves crashed against the rocks with unimaginable violence, and the wind howled between the lighthouse windows like a lament. Suddenly, the fire went out, plunging the room into absolute darkness. The girl felt a pang of terror, but then she heard a faint voice. "Do not give up. Never give up." The keeper was using his last reserves of energy to light the lighthouse's beacon. The girl understood that the future depended on them. With a small flash, the lighthouse illuminated, breaking the darkness with a beam of hope. The girl looked at it in admiration. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling a new strength surge through her veins. Her voice was weak, but full of determination. She knew she had to continue her story, keep the light of the lighthouse burning, even when the sea roared around them. The roar of the lighthouse had become a guttural groan, an agony that resonated with the frenzy of the storm. The wind, like a furious beast, lashed against the walls of the old building, tearing away chunks of stone and wood as if they were dry leaves. Inside, the keeper struggled against an invisible but relentless enemy. Fire. The flames, devouring the timber with voracity, danced in the darkness with a macabre waltz that was reflected in his desperate eyes. His face, once tanned by the sun and sea, was now covered in soot and sweat, a mask of terror that consumed his soul. Every step he took was a battle against the flames, every breath a torrent of acrid smoke that burned his throat. He remembered the girl, with her radiant smile and eyes full of stars, that eternal flame they had shared on calmer days. A tear ran down his cheek, mingled with sweat and soot. "You have to get out," he whispered through gritted teeth, an order more than a plea, as he searched through the chaos for the small figure that gave him reason to keep fighting. His hands, rough as the rocks that rose alongside his lighthouse, grasped the girl's hand, guiding her through the dark and perilous corridor. The salty tang of the sea mingled with the acrid smoke of the fire, creating a nauseating perfume that burned their nostrils. The heat felt like a savage beast prowling at their backs, pushing them forward. The flames crackled ever louder, devouring the wood and leaving behind only ash and darkness. The girl trembled with fear, but the guardian's grip on her hand was firm, a beacon of safety amidst the chaos. His gaze fell upon the girl's face, into eyes reflecting a mixture of terror and helplessness. In that instant, he knew he had to do everything in his power to protect her, for the memory of the eternal flame they had shared. "Look," he whispered, his voice weak, pointing upwards. "The lighthouse still shines." The girl raised her gaze. Though the flames threatened to consume everything, A faint glow could still be seen atop the lighthouse. A beacon of hope, a promise that light would always conquer darkness. She sighed with relief as she saw the girl find comfort in the feeble glimmer. With one last effort, she guided the girl towards the escape door, hope blossoming in her chest like a small flame against the storm of fire.